Tamar, thank you so much for joining the Intelligent Love office hours and for being a part of tonight and just expanding people's consciousness around femininity and all the wonderful traits that you're bringing in with all the different modalities that you work with. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm going to pin both of us so that we can both be in this recording there. And so, if you could just give us a little background on how, I mean, you've been doing this work since you were 19. So, tell us a little bit about that journey that brought you here.
Yeah, so 19, I began doing therapeutic body work and working with the body, working with, um, I guess, healing the body. And with time, that kind of progressed into working as a doula. I was trained as a doula to help women throughout their pregnancy and their birth and helping them find their voice and really stepping into their power um, through birth, which is a shamanic initiation for women, actually. And from that, I eventually developed an allergy to chemicals.
Mm.
And with chemicals, with that, I was trying to find a way to heal myself because it was taking me through a journey of like depression and really bad fatigue and like all these things. So I was like, how can I do this without medication? And so
Mhm.
I took myself through a certification and became a women's healing arts teacher. And from there, I went to study shamanism and I studied with a shamanic midwife from Australia. And that was all around the women's mysteries, kind of being a woman and healing through childhood wounding, all the way through embodying different archetypes of the feminine and stepping into our power as a woman. And then from there, I guess I went to teach and study yoga. But the yoga that I teach is a form of yoga for women's body, for women's nervous system, her hormones, for awakening that life force energy within her body and really allowing her to come fully into her body, which I think we really struggle with. Most women, I even had some women that come in and they're a little bit triggered by my yoga. And there's usually at least one in a class, and that's because we're not used to being in our bodies. We're not used to really like settling down and like being with ourselves. And so it's a very beautiful yoga, very awakening, and allows us to somatically release emotions and also step into our true like feminine essence. So I just
Beautiful.
kind of progressed from there. I think I started my journey teaching about sensuality in a woman, like how to connect with our senses so that we can be present um, with the world around us and with our emotions.
Beautiful. And I know that you have spent some time really helping women move from all of the energy that we're picking up of being in such a masculine driven world where we have such a emphasis on kind of hacking the system and go, 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 do, do, do. And I think that almost everything that if you listen to on a productivity specialist online, or even I used to work for Franklin Covey back in the day, that it was really, really more male centric, more male driven in what we call success. So, how have you been able to come in and help women, one, open to the possibilities of where we could go that's not driven by that? And then, even how to shift that paradigm in somebody's mind so they still feel as though they're going to some place called success, but through the eyes of the feminine.
Yeah, so this is a really, really big journey. And I will start with saying that I was brought up in a family and a culture, society, where I grew up, that you work very hard. I started working when I was 13, and worked during the summer 14 hours a day. So I get the masculine mentality. I get that, like it's hard to soften into your feminine energy when you're like living and working in such a masculine um, construct society and business. And a lot of times our families even carry that masculine mentality. And so how do we shift out of that and still be successful? And this is an issue in a lot of corporations, I think, because the feminine is totally different from the masculine. Our hormones shift every week. We are a different person, we have this cycle. And so, what I share with women first is how to understand herself through her own cycles and what that looks like, helping her get accustomed to her own body, her own moods and emotions, and how that shifts and moves throughout the month. And then taking that into our business, it's understanding that as a woman, there are times in the month that we actually do need to rest. We need to honor that. And if we don't honor that, then we actually aren't as productive throughout the rest of the month. And it follows this cycle, and it keeps getting harder and harder and harder for us to really live in our full potential when we're not fully honoring where we are as a woman. And corporations, I was just talking to my students about this this past weekend, but corporations, some of them are finally acknowledging that women have different cycles, and if they were to honor that, then she could be more productive. But it's just the beginning of that. And there is still not a lot of there's still not a lot of corporations honoring that, a lot of businesses honoring that, and that could be small businesses as well. But I think for us women and for men especially, like let's say if we have a diagram or like a wheel, and this is something that every family can do. It doesn't matter if you have one woman, two women in the household, a young girl, but like if you have a cycle, this wheel, and you divide it into four, and you can move every week a little like colored, let's say it could even be a rock or a stone, into another week so that everyone in that family, everyone in that household could understand where that woman is and understand the time of the month where she is the most productive. And they can ask her questions. You can have these big conversations. And then there's another time of the month where you do not want to go there. You do not want to have those conversations. You want to like just let her do her thing, like maybe bring her some food, like let her sink into that feminine energy and to take care of herself so that she can come back out and give her best to everyone in her world. Um, but I think that's we're seeing the shift, but it's there's still not a lot of familiarity with it. I'm starting to get tired with the cycles in that way.
And I 17 years ago, well, I started my company 20 years ago, and 17 years ago, I had enlisted a gentleman to help me with an app where I wanted to help gentlemen in relationship with a partner to be able to track their cycle and to be able to connect it with their love language and with their base chemistry and how they learned. And so if they could understand that, yes, I love calling attention to the Venus week. So if you look at mid-cycle, when a woman's luteinizing hormone is really high, that's the time she can most easily get pregnant. Everything is flowing for her. You can see that her white of her eyes is brighter, and her hair is shinier, her skin is better. She can communicate in a much more, like you were saying, with ease and grace and depth. And then she can do just about everything, like, just a tad bit better during that time, except for her gait. I don't know if you knew that, but the ability to not be able to dance as well and to sway her hips is a little bit off at that time. And what the scientists said is, during the hunter and gatherer times, you just didn't want to be walking on the horizon and have a guy from a neighboring tribe go, "I like her," and go over. You wanted somebody that was in your vicinity and close to you that you wanted to have see you in that light, come onto you. So that was, I thought, really fascinating. And I thought if more men could honor, this beautiful time instead of all of the negativity that came out around PMS and, watch out for her and all of that dark, light being put upon her, that I thought this would be great. And especially if they're going to plan just in the beginning, getting to know her, like trips and whatnot, like just know when you're going to have a more fun, healthy, vibrant. There are certain times that, that's going to be there during that week and around the Venus week. And then other times, probably want to curl up and like cuddle and mac and cheese time, like just like snuggle. And it's going to be much better. So I love the fact that you're now bringing that light into larger, environments of, companies and to be able to have women just really tap into who they truly are so that they're not fighting against that. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's really no reason to fight against it. When we fight against it, it actually creates issues in our health and our mental like capacity as well, like our emotions take a toll. Like it creates more havoc on every level whenever we do not honor who we are as a woman. And it also affects our relationships. And anytime that I see a man or meet a man, and I have a guy friend who has a daughter, and he was telling me all about how now he understands when his daughter has her cycle and how to like nurture her, like, and teaching her about that. And I just thought, like, how beautiful, like, that is so beautiful. The more that men understand that women actually do have these fluctuations and we change and they honor women in that way, we as women can fully step more into our feminine energy, which is actually what the masculine man wants. They want that, even if they don't understand what that looks like or what that feels like. When they do feel it, they get it. They get it.
Can you explain a little bit more? Like, tell me how a gentleman in a relationship with any women in his life can feel more embodied in his masculine if he's really honoring that cycle for her.
Yeah. So if women are receptive, we're naturally receptive beings, and receiving the masculine in multitude of ways, but the masculine, like, we lead energetically as women. We are the leaders energetically, where the man is the leaders in the physical. So when he is honoring the woman and he is that leader, that, and we say like protector, provider, and a provider doesn't always just mean financially, it means like, what does she need? You know, the man is actually the giver, the nurturer, whereas women, that we take on that nourishing role of the masculine. But in order to feel like, this is going to sound the wrong way, but we as women, we give so much. We give a lot naturally. We want to nurture, we want to like mother, we want to like be there, we want to like be a support. And if a man is actually there as the masculine and filling her cup, like nourishing her back, right, is what I mean by filling her cup. She gives a multitude of that. And she multiplies everything that the masculine gives her. Whether it's nurturing, whether it's like honoring her cycles, and like, what do you need? Like right now, I know that you're exhausted. Like here, just like, go relax for a minute instead of like taking care of the household chores. Like go like run a bath. Like I know that you're like, this is your cycle, this is your time of the month, whatever. Like take care of you. And if he's understanding of that and appreciative of where she is, knowing that she can honor that, like, and bring that back out later, um, then I think that nourishes both the masculine and the feminine. That's really nourishing for him because she's actually able to give more in
Yeah.
her feminine essence.
I'm curious, just coming from, I went to an all women's college and we kind of had a little like, it's an all women's college without boys and kind of that mentality we can do it better and backwards and heels and whatnot. So I have really wanted to shift from the like kind of machismo feminine, go get 'em kind of attitude to a more understanding and ability to ask in a way that wants to call in men that they want to be there to help us, to be there to be that support, and to not feel like one, I'm diminished because I have to ask, but that I want to be able to ask in such a way to bring out that best in him. How would you suggest going about doing that in both a work setting and in like a family or a dynamic of a relationship? So maybe all three.
Feminine communication is so important, and I've been there as well. Believe me, I was not one when I was younger to want to be vulnerable. And I did not want to, open up, and I can do everything myself, since a child. So I've been there. I've definitely had that mentality. And having to soften into my feminine energy. I mean, now I can tell you, I love being a woman. I would not change it for the world. I just absolutely love it. Um, but it took me a long time to be able to soften in. Feminine communication is one of the most important gifts that we can learn. And how I would suggest leaving and returning work. Okay, wonderful. How I would suggest to do that, and what I share with my students is emotions. Men want to feel emotions, even if they don't understand. Like, some men will get triggered by our emotions as women, but they need emotions in order to connect. They need to feel your heart. And so, how do we express how we are feeling without trying to manipulate, without trying to get something from it, but just being vulnerable and expressing from our heart, expressing how we feel, not making them wrong? Because I find that a lot of men, understandably, like if they feel attacked or if they feel like they're not doing something right within the relationship, it hurts them, right? Because they oftentimes are really trying to do what is right and do the best. So coming from a place of I feel the story that I'm telling myself is, like I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling very like turned on, or I'm feeling like so happy that I could cry. Like, what are you feeling? And expressing from that place of I feel this, the story I'm telling myself is this. And I'll give you an example. I feel sad. Why do you feel sad? Because, you said you were going to call me last night. And when I didn't hear from you, the story that I was telling myself was that I didn't mean that much to you. And that made me feel sad. And I don't know what to do about it. You give him the opportunity to, in his masculine energy, find a solution and also hear you. And those are some of like, I think one of the most important things that we can learn in a relationship is how to express ourselves in a vulnerable way that is not attacking. And when I learned to do that, like I thought that I was feminine in my communication. I'm like, yeah, I can express my emotions and I can, but when I actually sat down and looked at feminine, masculine, like what actually is that and how we're expressing ourselves and how we're showing up in relationships, even then I was like, wow, okay, I'm still showing some very masculine qualities in how I'm showing up in my relationship. And I started to shift that. And when I started to shift that, he started to respond very differently. And he started to open up and show up very differently. And so it does work. It does this. And I think that's in the communication aspect that allows him to step up into his masculine. And something that I see, right? Like we have a very big opportunity as women to show up. And that means that we also have to look at ourselves. We have to see where we're not showing up or how we are showing up. And we get the opportunity to step into what I call the queen energy. And when we come into the queen energy and we really align ourselves to that energy, we energetically give an invitation to the man to step up into that as well, to step up into his king energy and to be that. Like it's not a verbal communication, it is just an energetic communication. And that's where I come back to, like, we women, we lead energetically and the men lead physically.
Beautiful. And how would that translate into a work environment? Would we also be able to bring the I feel, or is there a different way that we might want to step up in a work environment?
That's a very good question. Having worked for myself for a very long time, I mean, I do use these communication skills. um, in work, I I think the trick is to not be emotional. Like you have your emotions and come from that, that place, but also like not, whereas in a relationship, you want to be like expressive, a little more expressive. And a work environment, I don't really think that being so expressive, but explain, like having an explanation coming through in your communication, but not being overly emotional, because in a work environment, that's just, oftentimes we are working with men. And in a work environment, we have to also hold that space, but show up in our feminine energy. And for me, that is still being there as your feminine self.
I'm curious. I would say some of the environments that I've worked in that men really appreciate logic. So if you can come in with some logic and making things make sense for them and go to that deep why, then you have permission to kind of ask them to hold that container for you and to move more into their masculine and allow you to be more in that feminine. But that's the understanding of, hey, this is how we operate. We're a little bit different than one another. We've got a different software and hardware going on, and we want the same outcome. So, if we want the same outcome, how do we work as a team with those different dynamics, right?
Perfectly said. Yeah, the logic word was the one I was looking for when I was saying not coming out as emotional, is with the logic. Yes. But
Yeah,
expressing the yes. Perfectly said.
beautiful. And Fred, I know you had a question earlier. I just wanted to know if you still had that because it was your hand was raised there for a bit.
Are you kidding me? I got a ton of questions. Tamara, I really like your insight and your clarity of being able to explain. I have four questions. If I can go through those, please.
Sure.
What style of yoga?
I teach a style of yoga that's a blend between Kundalini and Tantra yoga. It is it's a more of an embodied, works with the internal energy, somatically releasing emotions, but also activating that Shakti Kundalini energy in the body. And it helps women's nervous systems and hormones really regulate, as well as allowing her to really come into herself and her body and really center and ground inside of her body to be there, so she can feel her energy.
I lived in a Sikh ashram where we practiced Kundalini yoga,
Mm.
but the head of the ashram was also a very high up person in Tantra yoga. So we got a shot of both of those, which was incredible. Okay, do men have a weekly cycle as women do?
To be honest, I feel like men do go through a cycle. And I feel like it's a little bit different than a woman. Obviously, the hormones are completely different, but I do notice that men go through their own cycles. And for women, if they are not no longer menstruating, it would be with the moon. So for men, I don't know if it would be, because I don't work specifically with men, but I'm wondering if it would be the same kind of cycle, or maybe a little bit more drawn out. Maybe theirs is um, having to do with the seasons, but that I cannot answer fully with a 100% like clarity. Okay,
I,
yes, Joy
I
can.
I would a little bit with my partners in the past. I have noticed that they really start attuning to my cycles, and so there would be a like the days after my PMS, we would call it his PMS, his pissy mood syndrome. So I don't know. he would he would just go through pretty consistently, like for about 3 or 4 days, that he was just very sensitive and a little bit more emotional than normal, and so we just said that's his PMS, and we were like honored that, and it was fun that we saw it and we started tracking certain things that were in alignment with mine. And so my Venus week, definitely he would be more heightened and happy, and I don't know if he just was excited that it was my Venus week, but it
You were
was
so
fun.
magnetic. It was like,
And then he could go through a whole cycle in a day Were there certain, just attuning to, and now that I know more about how somebody is connected in the way in which they sleep with their sleep chronotype, that definitely was also playing into that. But I think that him in conjunction with my cycle definitely had his own cycle. So,
So
but
fast.
yeah.
Okay, so Joy, you brought up another question for me. I'm sorry to take so much time. I hope
That's
you, okay, great. You gave me the go ahead. I'm going to go. I have six sisters. I'm the oldest one. I have a brother who's 10 years younger than me. So and my father passed when I was 9. So a lot of estrogen, female energy. But I'm not aware of the change. And I'm thinking, I've been in 5 long-term relationships, 10 years plus. And I'm thinking, I'm not really aware of the cycles. I'm not really aware of those kind of changes. And I'm wondering if that's just me being very malleable and going along with it and not saying, hey, what's going on here? So I'm not really aware of the cycles in with my sisters and with the women that I was with. It seems like maybe minor fluctuations, but I just took it in stride. So what you're telling me is I don't have a woman right now in my life, so I don't have that kind of gauge. But for me to look at myself, so Tamara, you said something about the moon. Can I look at the moon and try to get an idea of cycles from that?
In my experience, yes. So I used to lead my ex-husband through the moon cycles, and we would kind of journey through that together when the time that we were together. So you can totally do that. And just understanding that each week of the moon cycle is representative of a different energy. And you can honor that within yourself if you want to take yourself through cycles. The full moon would be like the woman's ovulation. And so it would be like the time where things more magnetic, time to structure, like have more meetings or whatever, like go out more. You're more energetic and want to be out in the limelight, so to speak. The dark moon would be the time that you want to cocoon, do some deep self-care, meditate, like really kind of like go inward, look at the things that you want to release in your life, want to shed and let go of, so that you can kind of be reborn and rebirth through the next cycle. So you could totally honor that. And it really does help.
What you're saying is really gave me a new idea, and that's I journal. I have several of these, but the idea of how am I feeling today, and where's the moon at, and keeping some kind of record. But here's the other thing: how do I tell the difference between a cycle and a psychological mood, or psychological attitude or reaction?
So one of the things that I have my students do is kind of what you were saying about with the journal, right? Every day, write down where the cycle, if you want to use the moon cycle, right? Write down where the moon is at. The moon is full tonight. It's a full moon right now, actually in Pisces. What are my emotions today? And then as you go through and you start to calculate and kind of like maybe do this for a couple months, you're able to look back and say, oh, well, every full moon, I feel like this. My emotions psychologically, like I'm going through something that, or every Pisces moon, like what I'm experiencing, there's a lot of emotions. Like Pisces is about emotions, sensitivity. So every Pisces moon, I'm going through this in particular. And you can maybe start to understand yourself on a psychological level through the phases and how they're reacting with you.
So you're saying I could use the so, so I do feel things, and but they seem like they change many times during the day. So when you or Joy, I'm not sure which one it was, talked about a man changing, going through all kinds of cycles in a day. I recognize I do that, but I'm not sure if it's cycles or if it's me reacting to my environment.
Joy?
Could be a combination of both. And I think that it's fun to keep track of that and just go, okay, I know for a fact that I've talked about before when you have a nitric oxide, men wake up in the morning and they have between 65 to 70% of what's called their nitric oxide in their system that takes the oxygen through your whole system. It really makes you feel like all of your senses more heightened. And when I talk about aphrodisiacs, I often say it gives you more flow below. It's something you definitely want to top out to try to get to that 100%. You can do that through deep breathing. You can do that through exercising. You can do that through different foods. And so talking a lot will help bring that in. So majority of men have really gotten to have 100% in their system by the early afternoon. Whereas women, we wake up with between 24 to 30% of our allotted amount of nitric oxide in the day. So we, by the end of the day, unless we are in a field where you're talking all the time, like hairdressers have a tendency to really talk a lot or have a lot of communication, and they probably are leaning more toward being topped off a little bit earlier. But a lot of women, by the end of the day, it would be good for them to pick up the phone on their way home and talk to their sister or their mom or their friend, and to get more of that, or to go for a walk or to do some meditative breathing before they get in and are with their partner, so they can be more on the same level with him. So I think knowing more about your physiology, knowing more about your sleep cycle, it's called The Power of When by Dr. Michael Bruce, Breus, and he talks about what your circadian rhythm is with sleep. And you're going to have a different rhythm about you, and when you're going to want to eat, when you're going to want to exercise best, when you're going to be more alert to do deep thinking, when you're going to be better at doing some exercise or wanting to have sex. So you're wanting to pay attention to who you are and how you're in sync. And I think that what you were saying about the moon, I think that the more we can invite some fun rituals into our life, that just we can keep track of on a monthly cycle, on a weekly cycle, I think that it brings us more joy in the long run, even if we're not you know, we don't normally have rituals or, constraints about us, but just knowing, hey, we get to do something fun and pay attention. And I love the full moons. I try as much as possible, at least half of the full moons in the year, to go out and do a full moon hike and to honor that. And we used to do that when my son was young. There was a big rock that a lot of people would meet at. That were in my group, and I've just put it out there, bring some hot chocolate or some wine and some chocolate, we're going to go and honor the moon tonight and watch that. So if you can do that and find different ways to bring that joy to ritual, no matter where it is in that cycle, and then bringing in a partner to that, I think that it helps you keep track of, like, this month, and we celebrated this and we honored that and we had that particular way of moving into a new cycle of the seasons, or like she said, the full moon. So finding ways to bring that into play and already have it set up when you move into that relationship, I think will bring more appreciation to who you are and the structure that you're bringing to that relationship.
Okay, I did have another question, but I think we kind of answered it. It's just identifying women's cycles, but what I'm getting out of this is I need to be a lot more aware of what I'm feeling. I thought I was. I took a thing called voice dialogue, and one of the first things she said to me was, "How do you feel about that?" Huh? How do I feel about that? I don't know. So that was an experience. What you did is you just put me back on that same track again. So thank you.
Yeah, and the book that I would recommend is called The Venus Week. I can't remember who wrote that, but she does a really excellent job of explaining how a woman is going through a cycle and then how that shifts once she's perimenopausal and menopausal. So I think that's a good one to open up your eyes and just attune. And it's a lot of times women aren't, as why you're here tonight, aren't paying attention to this, and some of the simple things like not being hydrated enough at different times, and to pay attention to, if you're drinking, like how you're personality can change if you're in different types of times of your cycle. And I think I've definitely worked with a lot of gentlemen who are becoming more aware than their feminine partners of what is going on. And oh wow, she shouldn't have, uh, what was somebody had just called out blue cheese, that blue cheese really seemed to like take her in a downward spiral, and combine that with some red wine and uh-oh, like let's not do that one again. So I love the fact that gentlemen, I think, can become really attuned, and the more they are, that's going to help their relationship and their communication overall. Yeah.
Great, thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred.
Um, so there's so many other questions we could talk about, but one in particular was brought about. I wanted to say a quote that I had found by, let's see, hold on. Oh, that's it. So one of my favorite teachers when I first started was a woman who wrote a book called Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, Regina Thomas Hauser. Yeah. And she has a quote that says, when women allow themselves to receive and honor their own needs, they create space for deeper love and appreciation in their relationships. This is the art of reclaiming our feminine power. And I thought, how wonderful is that, that just being able to drop into that and to start paying attention to what we need and how we need, and to be able to have a voice around that is so, so important. So, can you just speak more to how, if a woman is starting a new relationship, how they can bring this into the conversation fairly early on in a way that really honors the gentleman and makes him want to show up and to listen to her and to help her taking care of her own needs?
So when you're asking that question, is it about sharing what your needs are in a way that he can hear that? So I think it starts first with knowing what your needs are, getting very clear about what your own needs are, and showing up for yourself. And also then not just honoring yourself when it comes to, because I think oftentimes when we start a new relationship, so many of us are like, well, we want to jump in, we want to like be there, we want to like go spend time with our new person, and we can sometimes put our needs to the side. But whenever we honor our own needs and just say, you know what, I would love to, but right now I'm feeling this, and I'm very, very open about things, obviously, probably because I teach it, but I'm feeling like this is what I'm needing. I'm really tonight, like I'm needing just like to cocoon, because let's say my cycle's coming, or I've had like a really long day or just something and I'm exhausted. Um, sharing why. I think that's really important to share why, so that they can also understand. Sharing what it is that you're needing and what you're doing for yourself in order to fill that need. Like tonight, I'm gonna take a bath. I just really feel like being warm and being cozy, and I need that tonight in order to feel better. Like this is, and just explaining that. I think just using our voice, using the power of our voice is so it's so important. And then it's how we speak as well, right? But I think by honoring yourself from the beginning, honoring your needs and showing up for yourself and showing that person in that way that you're also showing up for yourself, then they can step into that role because they understand you from the beginning.
When I first had my podcast, it was called Intelligent Love 411 for Men. And I had one runaway like video that got tons of views and some awards. And it was teaching gentlemen how to attune to their wonderful partner if she'd had a stressful day, and how to create an incredible bubble bath experience for them, and to like even bring like the flower petals and lead her from the door to the bathroom to have cleaned it really well. Had like a close up of all the cleaning products, and how to create that, with the music and just something to drink and some fruit, and just to have fun with that, of how what the continuation not only of that actual experience of helping her de-stress, but
Mhm.
she's going to be talking about that for a really long time. You're going to get an incredible ripple effect of all of the good energy coming your way when she tells her girlfriends about that, and everybody else that will listen to her, of how her gentleman had been honoring her and taking care of her and paying attention, that she needed that type of energy and attuning to. So,
Yeah.
I love.
So true. Man, that's so important. It's so beautiful. And what that does is it really like nourishes her. Like when you like she feels cherished, she feels seen, she feels like, and as I said earlier, and one thing, when you give that to her, she will multiply that to give back to you. And so understanding that from a man's perspective, that is so important for a relationship. And I'm divorced, but I tell you, my ex-husband was not romantic when I met him, but he did those things. He learned very quickly, and he would make me those bubble baths, and he would put flowers in it, and he would bring me wine and cheese while I was in the bath. And it was so incredible to receive. I still talk about it. I mean, obviously, like we still have love there, but I still talk about it to this day. It's something I will never forget, because it was so beautiful to receive that as a woman. And then what he got in return from me as a wife was, it's beautiful what we can do as men and women together.
Tell me, from a female perspective, what would be a way to shift and to be able to give a mass men, how to like kind of raise up their masculine, how to help them feel more cherished in a masculine way? What would you?
Respect, respect. Men want respect. So respect and admiration, with honesty, right? We never want to say something that we don't feel, but to really make sure that they understand verbal touch, also, just to let them know that, you're there, that you appreciate them, that you love them, that you honor them, that you respect them, and through words of affirmation. That may not be their love language, like for to say, like many men have the love language of touch is one of the first ones, I think. But affirming them with respect is so important, to let them know that they're doing a good job, that you see what they're doing, and you let them know. And I think that's one of the big things is verbal communication. You know what, sweetheart? Like I love. It's back to the feelings, right? I loved and I feel so amazing and so cherished whenever you made me that bubble bath last night. Like I'm just like today you made my whole day, like something like that, to let them know how you're feeling really can start to shift things, because they can start to see, okay, I'm giving her this and that makes her so happy. Like I want to do more of that. If they're into you, if they love you, if they want to be with you, they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head. A lot of times people think that it's words of affirmation that men really need or craving in that, and it's actually an emotional need that they have, of the admiration and honor and respect, and to not feel like they're being taken for granted.
Yes.
Very, very big. And I think that women can really hone in on what you just said, is especially in the beginning, but I think it tapers off, after we've gotten used to being with somebody, instead of really honoring and continuing to verbalize that. But in the beginning, when a gentleman is courting and doing all these wonderful things, to not just go, "Oh, thank you, honey. Oh, that's great. I like that." No, 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 no. go to the depths of why, how does that make you feel? What needs are being taken care of because of that? Because if a gentleman really gets the why, especially in the beginning, I call the beginning with the love drugs really high, the sticky sauce time. And so if you do that, then, and they get the why, then it will, chances are it will continue. And to keep saying that and bringing it back to the forefront of, oh my goodness, when you did that, it made me feel this way, and my needs for that were really being taken care of. So, thank you so much for showing up like that, because you kind of get this flat line going on. And I just read a quote that was by Gabrielle Marquez. Gabrielle, yeah, oh, darn, in Love in the Time of the Cholera, the gentleman Marquez. Oh, forgetting the name. Anyway, his quote was essentially that I've been with my wife for 40 years, but I've forgotten to have those deep conversations. I've now lost who she is, and it's time for me to reclaim and to re get to know her. But how easy it is over those years to start taking somebody just for granted and assuming that you know, instead of stopping and asking and going to that depth and breadth of what those things mean to you.
And I think that is a big um, killer of relationships whenever we stop being curious about the other person.
Yeah.
When we stop asking those questions, it really is because you want someone, whether you're a man or a woman, to want to know you, to want to be curious about you, to be there, to want to explore you. I mean, like I'm all about the depths. So like maybe I'm more so than other people, but um I think that that is such an important key to relationships that people we end up taking each other for granted after some time. And that has to be a consistent practice, a consistent choosing to show up and to be curious and to continue pursuing and for the men and continue dropping in, continue dating, continue all those things because that is what builds a not just romantic relationship, but that passionate, that connection, that chemistry that continues for years and years and years.
Yeah. Being able to make somebody feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
So important. And it's one of the things that, as I'm re-revving up my newsletter, it's coming up with questions. Just, continuously coming up with new questions to go, oh, I hadn't seen that perspective before. And where is that coming from? And how do I go and dive in and kind of, look underneath that, crevice, and to be really excited about what you're discovering instead of like, okay, taking it again for granted, just as that killer of passion. So being able to be curious, to be excited, to continuously show up. And even I think one of the love languages I'm not as good at, but my ex-husband was into gifts. And I remember like really knowing that I needed to step it up as to how I received gifts to get excited about it. Of course, it helped if you actually tuned into what I wanted instead of what he wanted, but that's another story. But knowing that we have that ability to tune in and light up and to give ourselves permission to light up, to be excited in such a way that we are fully present in that moment with each other and to see one another. So I love that. Another wonderful quote that I was going to say from her, from Regina, was women women are not built for the relentless pressure of always prioritizing others at the expense of their own pleasure and well being. Reconnecting to your desire and taking time for yourself isn't selfish, it's essential.
Mhm.
What would you say would be something that you would give to the women to be able to step in and start paying attention? How could they kind of turn that into a ritual to pay attention to themselves? And then how in turn would you give them that to pass on to whatever gentleman in their life to also turn into a little bit of a ritual of paying attention to who they are and their essentials needs?
For the men to be able to pay attention to their own essential needs, kind of, or the
Fir-
women.
First, the women and
Okay.
how they can create their own ritual, and then two, how they could then ask the gentleman in their life to pay attention to that and to also honor their needs.
Okay, got it. That's where I first began, actually, and that's why I began with sensuality. Because I feel like as women, we deplete ourselves, by giving and giving and thinking of everyone else. And I was raised by a mother who was always giving to everyone else, never really thinking about herself. So I kind of had learned that lesson through her. And so coming back to our senses and our sensuality just means basically experiencing the present moment. Like, what can you do to really sink in and experience what you're tasting? How that bath feels, like what you're wearing, like what are you wearing that feels good for you? Like, it's not about what anyone else feels or thinks about what you're wearing, but what feels good on your skin. And really filling yourself up through those little moments throughout the day. And maybe if you need more than that, then setting an alarm on your phone, like for every like couple of hours, that brings you back into the present moment. And like, what can you do right now? And maybe it's just taking a deep breath. Maybe it's giving yourself a scalp massage, maybe it's like you need to step outside and just take a deep breath of air, or put your feet on the grass. But like finding those things throughout the day that gives back to you. What does that look like for you? And then, yes, connecting with your senses and really taking those special moments. We have mothers, right? That you feed your children and you're like maybe eating a piece of fruit, but help the child as well. Like, oh my gosh, this fruit, the strawberry is so delicious, it's so juicy. Look how red it is, and really be present with that that's right in front of you and how it tastes. And that right there has a way of lighting you up and bringing you into the present moment and really starting to fill you up. But if you can make that a habit throughout your day to do at different times, it becomes a consistent habit. You start to think about those things that fill you up. You start to look for those things and you start to do more of it throughout the day. And it's just a progressive way to do that. How to explain to men about helping us, I think it's kind of the same thing. I think it really comes back to things that are very similar. Is expressing those things with him as well. Like the smell of a flower. I used to run and bury my nose in every flower that I saw that I thought could smell good, and I would have pollen all over my nose every time. And so like that would be a thing. Be like, oh, you're so cute, look at that pollen on your nose. So they know that you love flowers, right? It wasn't something intentionally that I was doing. It was just something that I loved. Same for food. Like, how good does this food taste? Here, take a bite, like expressing how you feel and showing them and inviting them in to experience that with you. So they get to experience you and that at the same time, and they get to experience this through you. And so they get to know you on a deeper level. They get to experience your emotions and your, quirkiness or whatever that is, and your senses, and understanding how you are being filled up by those things. And I think by that, they're also able to connect with themselves on a deeper level.
Yeah. And what joy you bring when you can be that present in the moment and you can bring attention to all five senses. And I think that you're radiating so much more good positive energy when you're able to see all that, even if it's not even the best of things, but it's like something stinky. You're like, oh, but oh wow, we're really there. We're really smelling it. And I think that also comes back to what we were saying earlier when we were talking to Fred about rituals. And one of the things my high school boyfriend always brings up, and his girlfriend to this day appreciates that I did, was I paid attention to the details when we were going to eat. So we always set the table. We always had cloth napkins. We always put the candles on the table. And we really created an environment and honored, and also started out by saying, what are we grateful for? And just bringing attention to that with kind of, we would go, what are we grateful for to the world at large? What are we grateful for in our like immediate family? What are we grateful for the other? And what are we grateful for about ourselves? So that it gave that kind of big, beginning to this meal that we were about ready to eat, and honored it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I love that idea of just the more we can return to being present in the moments that we have, and really kind of in putting an intention around those moments. And when we can do that with the other people in our world, I think that we're adding so much more richness to one another's lives and perspective, that we're not going to get just in our own minds and our own myopic way that we've gotten, especially with the screens and how like narrow our focus has gotten, to be able to invite more people in to have those types of experiences with us, and to see and hear and smell and taste from their perspective, not just our own. I think is going to add so much, rich landscape to our world. So, yeah. Well, thank you. I know it's late on your end of there on the East Coast, so I'm just curious of anything else. I'm going to say one other quote, but is there anything else that you would want to leave us with in this discussion that maybe you haven't touched on yet, that would be helping either the gentlemen or the women in this discussion?
Yes, I mean, I think as far as women, like I said, we're the energetic leaders. We lead energetically. So one way that you can start and begin to tap into your feminine essence, your intuition more, your feminine power, and really step into that place yourself as you're going out and meeting your partner or having a date, connecting with our power source as a woman, which is our womb. And if we no longer have a womb, it doesn't matter. The energetic container is still there. And so really tapping into that and really growing a relationship with this part of our body will allow you to tap deeper into your feminine essence. And so that is just a practice. It's a simple practice. You can do that for a few minutes whenever you wake up in the morning and go about your day, but going about your day leading from that place, and leading from that radiance, because eventually what that does is it adds more radiance to how we show up. And the men see that or feel that on a level. Maybe they don't see it, but they feel it on a level. Even if they don't understand what they're feeling or seeing, they do.
And how do you think that shift would show up for women? How are you seeing that in the people that your clients that you're working with? How is that?
Yes,
com-
more
Yeah.
confidence in who they are as a woman, more self-assuredness in the way that they walk and the way that they move and the way that they because movement is all a part of femininity as well. Like, how do we move? How do we speak? How do we, like, our intuition is, how do we um intuit who's showing up in our life? Like, are they the right ones for us? Are they not? Like, is this where we should go? Is this not? Like, we lead from that space. Our intuition is one of our most powerful sources as a woman. And so if we're able to tap into that, then we're able to lead with that. And men, it's with their hearts. So men, it's important that they start connecting with their hearts and opening up their hearts and really coming from that leadership, but from a heart-based place. A lot of times it's through ego, and we all have that. But whenever a man is able to come from his heart and a woman from her womb space, like, that is really when we are in that connection and that power, from a loving power, right? When I say power, I mean from our own sovereignty and our own internal truth. And this is where we can really grow together. And this is where we can really start to make changes.
Oh, I love that. I hadn't heard it quite expressed like that before, so thank you very much for that. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, this is from Esther Perel. She says the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. And it's that balance of autonomy and connection that leads to a thriving partnership. So being able to really lean into, I think, who we are and our well being is going to be able to help us do this dance of this yin and yang much better with one another. And the more that we're honoring who we are, and even okay, that was one other question that I hadn't asked yet. That when I'm working with people and I'm helping them understand their baseline chemistry, there are women who really lean more toward the masculine and they're running on testosterone and adrenaline. And you see that even in the shape of their face. So, one of the classic husband and wife teams that the woman is leading more with that is uh, the Clintons with Bill and Hillary. And
Mhm.
so she naturally goes toward that. So if a woman is in that more powerful, leaning toward that as her natural way of operating in the world, how would that shift compared to a woman that's leaning much more into her estrogen that is running the show?
And in what way? In relationship
In
or
in the world at large, like, how would she pay attention to honoring herself that would be potentially different than a woman that is running a lot more in her estrogen, and
right.
to honor that that's okay to be more in her masculine, and who she might attract might be a little bit different than somebody who's running more in their feminine.
Totally, because you're still going to have that polarity that comes into play there and within relationships. But I think it's also still finding ways to honor your needs and to find times to soften, whether that's just to take a bath or to take a time out or to find time to meditate or to move or spend time with other women. Like it's just finding times and ways to nourish yourself. Because even in this is just my experience, right? With women that are extremely masculine, they still have the hormones of every other woman. They might have a little bit more testosterone. They might. That's possible. Um, but they still have to have that time where they are nourishing themselves in some way.
Yeah,
So that would be my suggestion, is still finding those spaces, still finding those times to find what nourishes you and to do those.
yeah. And I think that a lot of gentlemen are often confused when I'm working with the dynamics between the two of them, but that women so often say, even if they're the most powerful CEO, that, oh my goodness, if I could come home and just like give the reins over to this gentleman, even so much so as like, what I like to order or what food I like, please just order it for me. So it's one less thing that I have to do and hold on to the reins so tight on. If I can just give you those and trust you and know that you've got my back on that, then it makes her feel so much more taken care of.
Yes, because even the most masculine women still want to be able to soften. They still want to be able to drop in and not have to be that when they come home. So that is very true. Like, so if a man can step into that role in within the house
Yeah,
and honor that space within her, that is still that masculine that leader um, in the outside world, but let her come home and drop into her feminine and him be that masculine man at home and step into that space. If he is leading correctly, she will drop into her feminine.
yeah.
She really will. She will soften.
And I think being able to have these conversations much more fluidly instead of just trying to do it all like, just thinking and hoping and wishing, instead of going, no, actually, if we actually pause to figure out what feels good and right and what honors us in the different cycles that we're in, and to open up to that and to ask for what we need, I think that we're going to find much more passionate, much more dynamic, long lasting relationship dynamics coming out. I love
I
that.
believe so too.
I love that. Well, I so appreciate you coming, staying up for us on the East Coast and showing up and being able to have um, this conversation with us. And Lois, I can definitely give you the quotes that I was just saying again. Um, yeah, this was just been a really fun discussion, and I am excited if there's anything that you want to say for the women that might want to follow your workshops, your groups, your courses. What would you like to share with them so that they can um, keep attuned to what you're doing?
Yes, so you can find me at tamargail.com. It's TamarGail.com. I do a few different things. So I'm currently I run a training and certification program for women and the healing arts, the feminine. It's more of a feminine arts, a mystery school. I also work with women one-on-one, and very soon I'm opening up a monthly circle for embodiment of the different divine feminine archetypes. So every month is a new feminine archetype, and how does that show up in our lives? Because we're so many different attributes of ourselves that we can kind of embody, which is super beautiful. But you can find me there. You find out all about me there, the same in my Instagram, Tamar Gail. And I do want to answer something that's here. And sorry, that's why I was a little bit scattered. But something about men desiring to go to their softer feminine side at times while they're home as well. And yes, like to be honest, like when my man comes home and he's tired or whatever, I nourish him. Like I cuddle him. I have those times where like he feels that way. I have no problem because he also fills me up too. It's kind of that give and take for me. It's like, yes, you feel that. All right, all right, babe. Like, go sit down. Like, let me get you a cup of tea, or he's exhausted, like, you know what, this morning I'm gonna go get you a cup of coffee. I'll bring it to you in bed. Yeah, I have no issue doing that because it's a mutual thing. So when I see those times in him that he needs that support, and there's yes, home is sanctuary. There's nothing that we can't do for each other, right? When there's mutual respect and love and understanding and communication. And yes, so I do agree. So that's why I was trying to write that, and then I was like, wait, I'll just say it. But yeah, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out. You can find me there. And thank you everyone for having this conversation, for the questions. And Joy, thank you for letting me come on and speak tonight. It was
Ah,
wonderful.
yes, I so appreciate it. And I look forward to also having you on my podcast in the near future. So
Love
thank
that.
you so much. And we'll have you back here again someday. But I'm going to stay on and answer any questions you guys might have and also repeat some of those quotes if you'd like. And I look forward to answering anybody's questions. But thank you. I know that it's late for you and I want to honor that. So we
Sweet
appreciate
dreams, everyone.
Thank
I'm off.
you.
it. Take
Thank you,
care.
Tamara.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you guys for being a part of the discussion tonight. And yeah, I had found some really great quotes, and I'd be happy to send them out to people. But the last one was by Esther Perel, and she said, "The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life, and it's the balance of autonomy and connection that leads us to a thriving partnership." So it's a good one. There's another one that I didn't get to, but um, Connor Beaton, who is the founder of Man Talks, he said, "True strength is in being able to honor both the masculine and feminine energies within us. When we suppress one, we also suppress our ability to connect deeply with others." So I think as she was just answering that last question that was posed to her, being able to really go, to a place where you can communicate, hey, I just had a really stressful day. I need a little extra, TLC tonight. What can you do? And being able to attune to your partner to even be able to see that and hear that and coming up with different ways to open that conversation. When one of the things that I used to have, I haven't had it in my new house, but I had this dial that was on the refrigerator that we would go to when we got home, and we would kind of tile in where we were, what our feelings were, and how, yeah, kind of how we wanted the evening to go. If we were in an up energy and we wanted it to continue going up, or if we were kind of at a here and we wanted to like go and just kind of be cuddling together, we would have a way of gauging with one another that didn't need a lot of words. In particular, my husband might have been tapped out on words, so it was just nice to kind of go, oh, that's how she's feeling. Great. Okay. And we would dial in with one another of what would make sense for us for that evening, and to just enjoy each other's company and get the most out of honoring and nurturing one another when we needed that from the other. So I think that it's fun as much as possible to take those times to really tune into who your partner is, and to just say, hey, how can we really be that wind beneath one another's wings? How can we be that support? Because if we can do this dance of yin and yang well together, we have the capacity to be strong for the rest of our lives together. And we really put that beautiful foundation down between the two of us. The more that we can tune in and help raise up that vibration in one another. Ah. Any other questions that anybody has that I might be able to answer, or anything else you wanted to turn and discuss? Red. You're good. Okay. Luke, Ivy, Carol, Kathy, Lois, I so appreciate all of you guys coming and being a part of the discussion tonight. And if anything else comes up that you guys are experiencing in relationships, or that you would like us to be able to have as a future upcoming office hours, feel free to always message me, and I can put that on an upcoming edition of the office hours. So I have a couple people that are on the horizon, just trying to get them dialed in to when they're going to be able to join us. But I'm always open to more possibilities, any particular authors, any particular topics that you guys might have. So thank you guys for showing up and being a part of helping bring more love in the world and to have wonderful relationships.
This was a great experience, Joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.
Have a good night. Take
You
care.
too.
Bye bye.